Mic check. Mic check. Alrighty. So I believe my ISP issues are solved. So we're gonna see if we can talk about Uvalde tonight and just the changing timeline, changing stories. We've been hearing ever since the day that this happened that law enforcement and other officials come out with one narrative, and almost on an hour by hour basis, the narrative changes. So I just wanted to take a look at a few of the things that have changed and some of the stuff that's kind of active and current right now, just to kind of keep it all together and in perspective. First up, we heard that the way the gunman originally we heard that the way he got in the school was a teacher propped open a door so that she could go and get a cell phone from a car or wherever she got the cell phone from, and that he came in through the propped open door. The current story is the teacher had propped open the door. She was waiting for a delivery of supplies for an activity that was happening at the school that day. And that she heard, hi Sherry, she heard the people from the funeral home saying that there was a man with a gun. She heard the wreck, she heard the people screaming. She closed the door, she unpropped it and closed it, and she thought that she locked it. So that story has changed a bit, and this is the one of the newer articles on that. I'm looking for something. Just rearranged my whole setup, my desk, so I gotta remap myself. Okay, Uvalde teacher closed propped open door before shooting, Texas officials say. Door did not automatically lock, contradicting investigators' earlier account in which they said the teacher had propped open door. A teacher did not, as previously stated, leave a door propped open with a rock during the massacre at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas last week, but closed it before the attacks began, only for the door to not automatically lock, Texas state investigators said. The gunman used the door to get inside, where he killed 19 students and two teachers. The findings, released by Texas Department of Public Safety on Tuesday, contradicts an earlier account in which they said a teacher had propped the door open shortly before Salvador Ramos, 18, entered the building. Law enforcement did not intervene in the attack for approximately 1 hour and 20 minutes. That part I'm going to make a note on because as I was reading this stuff earlier and they kept saying 30 to 45 minutes before they went in, but I was reading accounts of when events happened, and I'm like, no, that's way more than 30 or 45 minutes. That's more like an hour and a half. So even as they were originally reporting this story and giving the narrative, there were like obvious contradictions even in the storyline that they were presenting. The article goes on to say Travis Considine, chief communications officer for the department, said investigators had determined that the teacher, who has not been identified, propped the door open with a rock. She ran back inside to get her phone and call 911 after the gunman crashed his truck on the elementary school campus. The door, he said, was designed to lock when shut, but did not. We did verify she closed the door. The door did not lock. We know that much, and now investigators are looking into why it did not lock. She came back out while on her phone. She heard someone yell, "He has a gun." She saw him jump the fence and that he had a gun, so she ran back inside, removing the rock when she did. Okay, so that still doesn't add up because up here it says she propped the door open with a rock but removed it, closing the door when she ran back inside to get her phone and call 911. Down here it's saying she came back out on her phone. He has a gun. She saw him jump the fence and that he had a gun. So she ran back inside, removing the rock when she did. So did she remove the rock before she went in to get her phone to call 911 or after she got her phone and came back and heard them screaming he has a gun? Am I the only one that's hearing that the same way? San Antonio attorney Don Flattery told the San Antonio Express News that the teacher kicked the rock away when she went back in. She remembers pulling the door closed while telling 911 that he was shooting. So again, it sounds as if the rock was still there, that she obviously had to leave the door open, propped open with the rock as she ran back to get her phone, and then remove the rock, unpropping the door after she came back when she was on the phone with 911, when she had possession of her phone. I cannot be crazy. I know that's what I'm reading. I'm gonna get past that. See, that is definitely it's contradictory, even in the supposedly updated story. The account comes as official accounts of the timeline of the mass shooting shifted in the days following the shooting on May 24th. Investigators are still trying to interview the Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District Police Chief Pete Arredondo, who took charge of the law enforcement response. He was sworn into an elected Uvalde City Council post on Tuesday. Steve McGraw, director of the safety department, said Arredondo treated the scene as a hostage situation and not an active shooter situation. McGraw called it the wrong decision. The response to the mass shooting, the deadliest school shooting in nearly a decade in the U.S., is now being investigated by the Justice Department. The Combined Law Enforcement Association of Texas, also called CLEAT, which advocates for law enforcement in the state, has urged officers to cooperate with all government investigations. Definitely, there's a whole lot of CYA going on. I'm I'm just going to tell you, I listened to these reports to kind of keep myself updated. I listen to them in the background throughout the day to day, and there's some heads that are going to roll in this case. I mean, people are going to get fired left and right. And I honestly believe that there's going to be some criminal charges that come against some of these law enforcement agencies or agents because there is also stories that officers were going in to save their own children. There's a story out there about one woman who was a teacher there and that she called her husband, who was an off-duty law enforcement officer. He was at the barber shop when he got the call. His barber also got a text at the same time, or she texted him, and his barber also got a text at the same time for someone else. And she was telling her husband, "There's an active shooter. Come now, help!" And he jumped up out of the barber chair. Hey, B Tim. He jumped up out of the barber chair to go to the school. So there's a lot of there's a lot of stuff going on in this shooting to where I'm just waiting to see when they start to fall, who's going to fall and how hard. There's been a great deal of false and misleading information in the aftermath of this tragedy. Some of the information came from the very highest levels of government and law enforcement. Sources that Texans once saw as ironclad and completely reliable have now been proven false. A timeline compiled by CNN shows that 19 law enforcement officers were in the hallway outside the classroom where Ramos was holed up at 12:03 p.m. By 12:15 p.m., U.S. Marshals and the Border Patrol Tactical Unit (BORTAC) were also outside the classroom. Several students called 911 pleading for help as gunshots were heard. It was not until 12:50 p.m. that Border Patrol forced their way in and killed Ramos. Investigators have said they found 142 spent cartridges in the classroom. Now, there's also some commotion about whether or not agents and officers were actually inside the building at the times that they're saying they were inside the building. Uh, and another thing, and I believe I have this article pulled up. If not, we'll search for it. There is a parent who's actually been threatened by law enforcement that if she keeps talking to the media about what happened, she's one of the parents who was outside and who was trying to get in, and she actually made it in. It's the woman who was handcuffed and by a U.S. Marshal. And then a local Uvalde officer told the marshal to uncuff her because he knew her. She was a parent at the school. When they uncuffed her, her words were that she thought, okay, this is my opportunity. And she took off running and made it into the school and was able to retrieve one of her children. This woman, she's been on, I believe, duty bond, but she's also been on, I want to say it was Banfield, and she was talking. She said that she got a phone call from law enforcement. She didn't specifically name which branch, if I recall correctly, and they told her that they're aware that she is on active probation and that if she continues to speak to the media, they're going to make sure that she gets a violation on her probation regarding her running into school. So I am really upset that, for one, this story keeps changing. And what I'm seeing personally, the way I take it is a bunch of officers were there and put their own lives and safety ahead of the lives and safety of the children. And yes, B Tim, that's the one. Um, but I'm seeing a bunch of officers that put their own safety ahead of the safety of the people inside that school who they were supposed to be there to protect. Duty Ron has talked a lot about this. He is very angry about the whole situation, and he keeps talking about how in his days on the force and even now in New York, the protocol is to go in. If there's an active shooter, you go towards the shooter under any circumstances. It doesn't matter. You go in the building, you follow the shots, you eliminate the threat, either by taking the threat down and into custody or taking the threat out into the morgue. But I'm seeing, to me, it seems like these officers were more worried about their own lives than the lives of the children inside. The thought occurred to me the other day because we heard the story from where the little girl was calling 911 and pleading for help, and there was like a lull in the shots, and then there were more shots, and she said he shot at the door. He shot the door. And my thought is that what if it wasn't the door that he shot? What if he actually shot a child? That's at least one person that could have been saved. Y'all excuse me a second. I'm getting in my feelings over here. But this complete lack of action and delay, and I don't understand how they could ever at any point during this situation have thought that the threat was no longer a threat, that no lives were in danger, because you had a school full of hundreds of children, hundreds of children. And for an officer or whoever was in charge to say that he assumed everyone inside was dead, there's no excuse for that, because how can you assume that this man in this short time managed to slaughter every single person in that school? Hundreds of children, plus however many teachers and principals and nurses and cafeteria workers and everybody else that works at that school. I'm upset by the fact that they waited so long. I'm upset by the fact that, as Duty Ron pointed out, and he's so right, no one there thought to disregard the stand down order and to just go into school. And I think I said that on the last live. If one of those people had just made a move to go in that school, everybody else would have followed them. If for no other reason than that you have your brother's back in law enforcement. So if one of them decided to run into school to save these children, oh, Streamlabs, I gotta turn it off. Well, B Tim said, well, because they aren't there to protect you, by law, cops don't have to protect you. They can watch you get stabbed and they won't get in trouble. And he is absolutely right. You are absolutely right. Which is why you notice a lot of police forces have taken to serve and protect off their vehicles, off their mottos, off their buildings, because it's been stated that we're not here to serve you and we're not here to protect you. We're here to enforce the law, which is a sad case because, to me, I would hope that people going into a law enforcement career go into the law enforcement career because they have an inner motivation to serve and protect their community, to make sure that the people in their community and the society around them are safe, to make sure that they're helping in any way that they can. All right, let me move on to the next story, to the next article. Tim says, yeah, get a better deal with the mob paying protection money, at least they might protect you. Which is sad that that is the way it is, but it is so true. Because at least criminals are going to protect their interests. Okay, I'm not sure what I got going on here. Let's get rid of that. This article here is, they kind of already rebutted this one, but I do want to share it anyway because when I read the headline on this one, I was just like, "Are you serious? This is not something that I've ever read in any case or even ever heard in any case stated so straight up. Uvalde Police School District no longer cooperating with Texas probe of shooting. So the cops are no longer cooperating with the cops. And of course, we know what happens, and they tell us this a lot of times, you know, in between the lines. But this headline was just so bold and just put it out there so raw. Like, you don't see this. You don't see them straight up saying, hey, the police are no longer cooperating with the police. So that just really struck me because I was like, wow. Says the Uvalde Police Department and the Uvalde Independent School District police force are no longer cooperating with the Texas Department of Public Safety's investigation into the massacre at Robb Elementary School and the state's review of the law enforcement response. Multiple law enforcement sources tell ABC News. So this wasn't a one-off. Okay. The Uvalde police The Uvalde police chief and a spokesman for the Uvalde Independent School District did not immediately respond to requests for comment on ABC News. According to the sources, the decision to stop cooperating occurred soon after the director of DPS, Colonel Stephen McGraw, held a news conference Friday during which he said the delayed police entry into the classroom was the wrong decision and contrary to protocol. Reached by ABC News, a spokesperson for the Texas Department of Public Safety said the Uvalde Police Department and the Uvalde CISD Police have been cooperating with the investigators. The chief of the Uvalde CISD Police provided an initial interview but has not responded to a request for a follow-up interview with the Texas Rangers that was made 2 days ago. 2 days without responding. So you would think that in a situation like this, I'm going to put it like this. Okay, if I were the one that was in charge of this this incident, if I were involved in it in any way as law enforcement, as a responder, as someone in supervisory position over the people who responded, the first thing I would want to do is go and tell what happened according to what I know, regardless to who it is that's calling me. I'm going to be knocking on your door before you can call me to say, hey, this is what I know about what happened, especially with all the foolishness and contradictions and walkbacks that are coming out. If I were anyone involved in this situation who needed to be interviewed by an investigating agency, as soon as they called me, I'd be on the phone, yeah, where do you need me to be? What time? Give me the address so I can make sure I go to the right place. So a 2 day delay in responding to an agency that's investigating the deaths of 19 children and 3 adults, or 2 adults. A 2 day delay is pretty much a slap in the face. It's pretty much an F you in a situation of this magnitude. It's not like they're investigating, you know, a theft where nobody died. It's not like they're investigating embezzlement or something. They're investigating the slaughter of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 year olds. There should be a fire under everyone involved to make sure they're providing answers. Last Tuesday's attack was one of the worst school shootings in U.S. history, left 19 children and 2 adults dead. And again, I really just, they walked this one back and said that, look, detail got me saying walk back, but they've gone back on this one and they're saying that they're cooperating. But the headline itself, the fact that there was ever a point in time where someone could feel comfortable in putting it out publicly to state the police are not cooperating, the school district is not cooperating, shows me that somebody somewhere is either trying to buy some time to come up with a story, to come up with a spin that they can put on it, or, it's something. They're trying to CYA, just like you said, CYA. This whole situation is just horrible. They've started having the funerals and they're doing custom caskets for each of the children, for each of the victims. I'm not going to read this next article. I just want you to see the headline just to show that, yeah, they've already started walking it back, started, you know, hey, no, that's not what's going on. Uvalde police chief says he's still cooperating. I done got in my feelings early on this one, y'all. I'm telling y'all, I've been sitting here with tears rolling down my face, and so I'm not going to stay on here much longer. I'm going to do this last article because this is kind of gut wrenching that I'm going to try and go in there and turn off this stupid stream labs. I forgot to do it the other day when I said I would. I got caught up doing something else. Tiny Dancer, I apologize. My Streamlabs mod bot is a mess. But Tiny Dancer said, fire the mayor, chief of police, Texas Ranger that handcuffed the mother, that was a U.S. Marshal, the officer that was using pepper spray on the father trying to get in, and 19 officers standing around. School superintendent. I know that's right. Fire them all. Everybody responsible for anything to do with that situation needs to be fired. I hear you, detail. At least he's not harassing you tonight, D. He was all over you the last time, though. Got you one time, though. I'm gonna turn him off. Matter of fact, I'm gonna turn him off right now. That way, I will not forget. So y'all give me just a second, because Mr. Streamlab bot is doing a bit much. This is the right one. He is doing a bit much. He, she, whatever it is. What is it anyway? Anybody want to know? We want to name it. One day I'll get to where I can like name my bot. Here you go. Off. Oh goodness, excuse me. I hope y'all didn't hear me burp. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that, so that was kind of rude. I'm sorry. Yeah, one day we're gonna have a thing where we can name these bots, and so I'm gonna let I'm gonna let the regulars name the bots. Also, if you're listening to this and you're one of my channel angels, I have 3 channel angels that I don't want to name because I don't know if you want to be named. But I have a channel angel who donated towards a mic recently. I have a channel angel who donated a tablet, and I have a channel angel who made uh, just a donation towards helping the channel grow. You guys know who you are. Please email me at Miss Savage Says, that's MS Savage Says at gmail.com. Um, and my email is also on the, or you can message me on Facebook. Get me your email address so that I can send you a link, or even on Facebook, you can message me on Facebook and I will send you a link. I'm going to do a private live with my channel angels so that you guys can just like ask questions, get to know. I mean, I can't do memberships or anything. So I just feel like because you guys have gone out of your way to help this channel grow and help me to upgrade equipment and be able to live stream more smoothly, I really feel like I just want to share with you guys. I want to give you guys something extra that nobody else is getting. So I can't do member only lives, but I can do channel angel lives. So make sure you get in touch with me and I will send you the link. We'll if there's only like 4 of us, so we'll work out a time that works for all of us and we can just talk and just you can ask whatever you want and we can just hang out. Anyway, back to this. Um Says a Uvalde coroner is haunted by identifying the bodies of children and an old friend. Can you imagine? This is not some big city. This isn't Los Angeles. This isn't Houston. This isn't DC. This is a smaller community where pretty much everyone knows everyone. My hometown is Pensacola, Florida. It's not a huge place, but it's small enough that they say everybody has 6 degrees of separation from everyone else. In my hometown, you probably have 3 or 4 degrees of separation from everyone else. Max. It's probably more like 2 or 3. So, can you imagine this guy probably, even if he didn't know these kids personally, he more than likely knows at least one of their relatives personally. He's worked with them, worked for them, they worked for him. They may be a member of some of the same social clubs, might attend the same church. And so this man was not only responsible for viewing these bodies and doing the things he needed to do to be able to identify these bodies, he may also partially be responsible for at least the preliminary autopsies. More than, I mean, he's the coroner. We know they died of gunshot wounds, so more than likely they're not going to bring in a specialist or special medical examiner from other branches of law enforcement. This is 23 people out of a small community, and at least one of them is a personal friend that he's responsible for. He's responsible for the autopsy, the identification, the strength for this man, because that is more than a bit much. Eulalio Lalo Diaz Jr. isn't always on call, but it was his turn to be at the helm as Uvalde's justice of the peace on the day a gunman massacred 19 children and two teachers at Robb Elementary School in the deadliest school shooting in state history. The county is so small that the justice on call also acts as Uvalde's de facto coroner. He doesn't expect he'll ever be the same. No way in the world he will be. It was my luck, my bad luck, Diaz told NPR, but I wouldn't wish it on anyone. Sitting in his office at the Uvalde County Courthouse, across the street from a makeshift memorial in the town square, Diaz recalled the shock of walking into the site of the slaughter that included so many small children whose parents and grandparents he's known for years. I told you, he probably knows at least one relative in every family, and one of his own high school classmates. I know both teachers and their husbands, he said. I know probably three-quarter of the kids' families or their grandparents. It's just that type of community, and it's close. Despite the connections, Diaz explained, it was my job to identify the bodies. Because there is no local medical examiner's office, the Justice of the Peace regularly steps in as the county coroner. In addition to presiding over misdemeanor court cases, small civil disputes, and marriage ceremonies. Last week, that meant that Diaz was the one who got called to the school to put names to the small, ravaged bodies of mostly 9 and 10-year-old children before they could be autopsied. It's just the most devastating news you want to hear, he said, shaking his head. The case was so grisly and so unlike anything he'd ever had to face, that it required extra help from the Bexar County medical examiner in San Antonio. Up until last Tuesday, Diaz said the incident with the most casualties that he had ever dealt with was when an 18-wheeler hit and killed a family of 4 a few years ago. While he waited for the medical examiner to make the drive to Uvalde, Diaz tried to steel himself. For 2 hours, I sat there preparing myself and getting ready for the scene we're about to see. Because you know it's going to be a tough scene, he said. There was an inner monologue running through his mind, he said, along the lines of, you have to be strong and you have to maintain professionalism because the families are counting on you now. But nothing could have prepared him for what was waiting for him inside. When they entered the school, he and the medical examiner found that the first responders had moved the bodies, separating the deceased from the wounded in order to get to those who needed medical assistance. So when we got there, there were children in 4 rooms, the initial 2 rooms plus 2 other rooms, Diaz said, adding that they went room by room getting the plan together on what we were going to need to make sure that we identified everyone correctly. Diaz did not describe the scene in detail. Instead, he said, it's something you never want to see, and it's something you cannot prepare for. It's a picture that's going to stay in my head forever, and that's where I'd like for it to stay. He says he has no intention of ever sharing exactly what he saw. That's the AR-15, which is the weapon used by the gunman at Robb Elementary School, is designed to blow targets apart. It's a weapon built for war. And when fired into a human adult body, its bullets travel with such fierce velocity. Okay, we get the picture. Diaz had to confront another chilling discovery. Among the dead, lying still on the floor of the same elementary school he attended as a child, was an old classmate, Irma Garcia, one of the 2 teachers who was killed that day. She was 1 year younger than me, through junior high and high school, and I knew her husband. He said, referring to Joe Garcia, who died of a heart attack 2 days later. He was a year older than me. They had been high school sweethearts. I've known them all my life. So that gunman didn't just kill 21 people at the school. He killed Joe Garcia too, because that man died of a broken heart. All right, guys, I'm going to end this live. If you are a prayerful person, pray for the community of Uvalde. If you're into vibes and energy, send good vibes and positive energy, because they need all the support they can get right now. I can't imagine what these people are going through, especially when everyone around there is so close knit. It's a place where everybody knows everybody just about. It's not like a big city where there's going to be some people affected and then some people aren't going to be affected at all because it doesn't touch their life in any way. Every single person in that community is touched. It's going to be scarred. It's going to hurt. It's going to feel lost. Keep them in your hearts and your minds. Good night, y'all.